Hi, I'm Dana.
And I'm Matthew.
Welcome to the Nat 20 Book Club. Woo! We're back, baby. It's been
Yes,
a
we
hot
are.
second. um, yeah, it's been maybe like 3-ish months since our last video. But
It's been a blink of an eye.
yeah, time flies.
It
So
really does.
you may recall from our last video, we had talked about reading The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi. And well, I read it and it was fine. Matt, Matthew started it.
I did start. I got about 100 pages into it.
Yeah, and then you just were like, nah.
Nah, I just wasn't feeling the.
Hmm.
I wasn't feeling it. A lot going on too. Like we didn't because we said okay, we'll switch to something else, and then here we are 3 months later.
Yeah,
Um, so it's fine. But
yeah,
what have you been reading in that time, Dana?
all sorts of things. But I picked a couple of highlights from the last couple months to share.
Okay,
The first one being The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang.
great book.
This is, yeah, I actually I recommended this to you a while ago,
Right, and I read it
and
first.
yeah, you went out and bought it. I was like, tell me when you start it, and then you started it,
hmm
and 2 days later, you're like, oh, I'm finished, and I hadn't even picked it up yet. So,
What are you
but I
gonna do?
finally, I finally read it in September,
hmm
and I loved it. It's a great high fantasy based in Chinese history.
Yep.
R.F. Kuang is a brilliant writer.
hmm
Um, Definitely going to continue with the series, and I've also picked up Babel,
Yes.
which is another one of her.
I've
Uh,
also picked that up. I haven't read it yet,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. So maybe we'll actually read that one together.
we can certainly try.
Yeah. And then the other one that I read that I really enjoyed was Golden Sun by Pierce Brown. This is the second book of the Red Rising series, which is a science fiction, and it's very fast paced and action oriented, which was a really great distraction from all the things that were happening leading up to
Yeah.
the presidential election. It was a great way to get my mind off of
hmm
that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, highly recommend the series. I have the next one in queue as well.
Ooh, fun.
What have you been reading, Matthew?
So, um, since our last video, I have read Apprentice to the Villain, which is the delightful sequel to Assistant to the Villain. And if you have not read it, I highly recommend it. I'm still trying to convince Dana to let us do it for one of our videos because I will hands down reread it again and again and again. It's a fun take in a fantasy world. I don't want to get into it. I'll talk for 20 minutes and then we'll be like, oh hey, we have an actual video to record. But that is one book I have been reading, and that is by Hannah Nicole Meyer, Maehrer. I cannot pronounce things, so I apologize if I
That was
butcher any of
close.
these.
You're
I've
good.
also been on a light novel kick. If for those of you who don't know, light novels are Japanese, like kind of like soft light novels, so they're not like necessarily full length novels as we think in like in English terms. They are typically meant for serialization, so there could be two or three in a series. There could be 32 in a series. It all depends on the author and if they keep getting funding from their company. But they I've been reading so these are Japanese series that have been translated into English. One of my favorites that I absolutely love is I may be a guild receptionist, but also any boss to clock out on time. Now, if you are someone who has a salary job and just wants to have the good benefits and doesn't want to have to work overtime, this is the book for you because that's all she wants. But pesky adventurers, dungeons, politics keep getting her way, and she's forced to work into the wee hours in the morning. But she'll do whatever it takes to not. So it's a fun series. It's definitely world of out of like if you're used to reading or watching different shows and like manga, light novels, anime that are like middle school, high school based stories. This is all adult based stories because they're all working professionals just trying to make a living, and it's a fun vibe, for sure. And then the last one that I'll share is She Professed Herself a Pupil of a Wise Man. It's a very fun story that I've recently come across. I've read the first 4 volumes of this story. It's great. It is a like a main character was transported into a video game, which is a very common trope in Japanese stories and storytelling. But it, in my opinion, has a fun, good spin on it that keeps makes it interesting and makes it unique compared to all the others that you can find. So that's what I've been up to.
Very nice. Yeah, I've never read a light novel. I've been reading more manga the last
Hmm.
like, couple of years, so
Yeah.
I might dip my toes into
Yeah.
that first one that you suggested because I
Yes.
can relate to
Yes.
that.
Yeah. And it's fun because like a lot of mangas are based off light novels, and there's a lot of mangas that are independent, like what we're going to be discussing today,
Is Uzumaki
Uzumaki.
by Mr. Junji Ito.
Hmm.
Oh my god. So, anyways, I had suggested this book a while ago
Hmm.
for us to talk about and read because I heard so much about it. Like,
Yep.
as far as horror goes, like, this is creme de la creme
Yeah.
manga. Like,
It's a
this
classic
this
for
is
sure.
this is peak.
Hmm.
So, um,
This is your Frankenstein, your Jane Eyre novels of
yeah,
the manga world for horror for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like this channel is quickly becoming Dana makes Matthew read weird books. And
That's all it is.
this fits that
Yes,
very perfectly. So,
that it does.
um, yeah. So, um, a quick synopsis of Uzumaki is we are focused in on this town in Japan called Kurozu.
Something like
Um,
that.
yeah. And this town is cursed by spirals. Um, like literally the shape of a spiral.
Hmm.
And we're following our main character is a high school girl named Kiri. We'll go with Kiri.
Sure.
Kiri. I'm so sorry.
We apologize for any
um,
butchering of a foreign language
yeah,
of
yeah,
names.
yeah. And we follow Kiri as she experiences this curse
Hmm.
become more and more prevalent in her town and how everything quickly goes to shit.
Yes, it starts off with
Yeah.
just one person, and it ends with everything in existence in this town being cursed by the spiral.
It's been like 2 or 3 weeks since I finished it, and I still I have chills thinking about it.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
but
definitely one that you think about. I As I finished reading it, I put it on my shelf, and I was like, all right, like cool. And I'll just walk by my bookshelf, and I'll stop and I'll look at it and go like, what a book. What a weird book.
it's so good. Um, yeah, after I finished it, I texted our group chat and I was like, guys, I think I am unwell.
Right?
I'm still unwell, I think. But anyways, to get into more of a discussion, Matt, did you have any expectations going into the book, like before you opened it?
I did not. Like I think I had heard about it before, I've seen it. I didn't have any really expectations. As you mentioned, this is the not the genre of manga, light novels, anime, or even just general novels that I tend to read. So it was interesting. I've seen a few horror stories in anime, but when I think of Uzumaki, I immediately go to like Naruto Uzumaki, like which is completely different. So
Your Jordan was telling me, your wife Jordan was telling me about that
yes, every time I say like, so I've been reading Uzumaki, and she go Naruto.
last
Great. Um,
Amazing.
so I actually had no idea what to expect, which was nice. This was just
Mhm.
something you pulled off the shelf and told me to read, and I said, sure, let's do it. And boy, did I read it. And it was out of my comfort zone. But unlike Annihilation, I really enjoyed this book. It was, while still like, what happened? What's the story? But it kept me more engaged, and I wasn't like, let this be over. It was phenomenal. I know you had mentioned the artwork. You want to say
Mm-hmm.
like what you liked about the artwork?
Yeah. I think the artwork in this was incredible. Without the artwork, this book doesn't work, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Like if this were to have been like a light novel or a regular book, it would
Hmm.
not have the impact it does, like the
Yes.
emotional impact. Um, like the so like some of the more scenes that are supposed to be extremely unsettling and the
Yes.
very graphic scenes, like he will use an entire page for one panel or 2 pages
Hmm.
for one panel, and it's just, oh, like looking at the images just gives you the creepy crawly feeling up your spine.
Yes.
um and I remember it was the first chapter. uh it ends with this very disturbing panel, and like it was the whole page. I just had to close the book and I sat there for like 5 minutes and just kind of processed what I had just seen and read.
Yeah. 100%.
The first chapter,
Yeah.
it is 600 pages long.
Yeah. This is definitely not like, sometimes when I'm reading manga, you know, you can blow through like 50 chapters in what feels like at a blink of an
Yeah.
eye. This is not. This is one where, while I read a whole bunch of it in one sitting, there was definitely breaks within that sitting. I could not just
Yeah.
like chug through page after page. I would finish a chapter and I had to put it down and I would have to think about something else for 5 10 minutes because it was just,
Mhm.
it was a lot. Because
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. He chose the perfect medium. This would not have worked as a traditional novel or a light novel that has some images inside. It
Mhm.
needed the manga. It needed everything to be displayed in art to get you to truly understand, one, what was going on in this town. Like, we start off like the first chapter, it's very isolated. It is the main character and her boyfriend and her boyfriend's family, like, is the only ones affected. And slowly you feel this magnitude growing as now, as
Like a
people,
spiral.
right, as people are being cremated, their ashes and the smoke is turning into spirals and going to lakes. All of a
Oh yeah.
sudden, go,
People
please,
are
no.
dying because of the spiral.
Yeah,
By the way,
people
that's why
legitimately
they're being
dying,
cremated into a spiral.
right? Like, people
Ah,
morphing into slugs and snails and climbing up to the school. Like,
I can't
it's
look at snails the same anymore.
right, right. Anytime you see a shell on like a hermit crab or a snail, you're gonna be like, spiral.
Can't watch SpongeBob because Gary is all messed up in my mind now.
Now you're gonna be
But
wondering,
yeah,
is that why Gary has so much personality? Did he used to be someone that it was then cursed to become a spiral?
how dare you? Please
This
stop.
this came
Please
out
stop.
before, I believe, SpongeBob came out. So, late 90s.
It was close.
It was
SpongeBob has been
close.
around for a hot second.
That is fair.
Um,
SpongeBob may have a beat, but you
I'm
can
I'm
fact
gonna
check
take a
us in the
guess.
comments.
I'm gonna take a guess that Gary from SpongeBob is not based off the snails in
What?
Uzumaki. um, but yeah, just like to show some of the imagery. Like here's an example. Hopefully you can see that. Like that
Yeah.
is a character who has devolved into a spiral
Yes.
and died. And I think she's one of the ones that gets cremated and her ashes spiral up into
That
the
could be
sky.
true. Hmm.
I think so. Again, gonna have to reread it, but that's fine because I actually would reread this in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Actually, not a heartbeat. I would wait until next spooky season. I'm
Yeah.
not sure I'm emotionally
Yeah.
prepared to read it again
There
right
are
now.
books or stories that as soon as you hit the end cover, you just flip it over and you start at the front
Hmm.
cover. This is not one of those books. You need time
Yeah,
to process it. You need the time to holistically understand of what you just read
yeah,
before you dive right
yeah.
into it again. And we sound like we're being dramatic, but there are some pretty traumatic stuff.
Oh my
I'm not
god.
going to go into it in detail, but the nursery ward chapter with the pregnant women. Wow. Um, that's all we need to say about it. But wow, if that doesn't traumatize you in some way, shape, or form, go find professional help because this should.
You're unwell already if you're not
Yeah.
messed up after that
Right?
one.
And if you're well enough, you should be traumatized. And like,
I sure am.
wow, that was a chapter.
Oh, so good. So good. Um, man. Any other thoughts, Matt? We're just
well,
raving about this book.
I know, right? Dana, if the curse actually happened, whether it be in the small town of Japan or here in the United States or anywhere in the world, like how do you think how do you think it would actually play out? Like the response, the attitude.
um, so in the book, we'll talk about what happens in the book first. At first, the townspeople are very kind of dismissive of the
Mm-hmm.
curse, and it takes several people dying and turning into snails before the
And
town.
then,
Yeah, before the town is like, oh wait, something bad is happening here,
yeah.
um, and you get like halfway through, and that's when people outside of the town start looking at it like what's happening here.
Mm-hmm.
And so people try to send help from outside the town. They come by boat, they come by land. I think they also come by air,
I believe so.
right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And the spirals take out everybody, or they come in by land and then they're stuck there in the town.
Yes.
They can't
I
get
thought
back
that was
out.
interesting. Yeah,
Hmm.
the town is described as basically almost like it's up against the ocean and it's surrounded by kind of mountains. This so there's like one
Hmm.
main tunnel into the town, so you either drive through this tunnel or you have to come in by boat. I love that there was one point where like the whole Japanese defense force and its navy comes in with all of its ships, and they're like, "We're saved," and it's immediately pulled in by a whirlpool spiral. Um,
Yep. Yep. Um,
yeah.
So, anyways, that's kind of happening externally from the town. Internally in the town, it kind of reminded me of what happens in like other disaster shows and movies and
Hmm.
stuff. Like there's people just trying to survive,
Yeah.
and it just looks differently for different types of people. You have like the people like our main characters who are just trying to still be a good person
Yeah.
and not be an asshole to the other survivors. And
Hmm.
then there's people who are just like, no laws, let's do whatever we want and go crazy. And
Yeah.
I think that that's probably what would happen
Yeah.
if this curse were to like come infest an actual town. I think outside help would try to come in,
Yeah.
um, and try to give aid.
Yeah.
Um, and that if it was at the point already that you're just kind of SOL and it was
Hmm.
mainly just like contain, then people within the town would kind of fall into different forms of chaos, like you would see in any other like
Yeah.
disaster movie,
Yeah.
or other type of
Yeah.
disaster type of book. I don't know. What do you think, Matt?
I think the response to outside help would happen a lot sooner in the real world.
Mm,
If
that's
because
fair.
there was one point where they said like people they took bodies and took them to other towns for them to be cremated because of what was happening, and the spirals happened there too. I think that would send up a whole lot of red flags immediately, and but so I think there would be in the real world. But I think if there's this town that the outside world could not have contact with, they would not keep sending people as is described. They would not keep sending volunteers in. I am the idea of I think sometimes this world can be too like reactive to situations. I would not be
Mm.
surprised if like it's almost like a Chernobyl esque like isolation zone. It's locked down. It's a bubble. If you ever seen the Simpsons movie where they literally put the bubble over the town, that is what they would do. It would be isolated. Anyone who would try to come out it would immediately be like taken down. No,
Pew
you're not
pew.
spreading this
Yeah.
curse. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the world we live in. Uh, they definitely would not send a fleet of ships to be sucked into a spiral.
No, probably not. Uh, Maybe one ship, but not a whole fleet of
Right? They would
ships.
learn the first time. They would send one ship and go, nope, not again.
Let's just test it out first and see
Hmm.
if it tragically fails.
I would love to
But
see. meteorologists in the real world go, look, there's this hurricane or typhoon heading towards this town. It's stuck and locked over this town. And go, we've never seen this before.
Like, huh?
Maybe
Weird.
weird. Why are all these hurricanes and typhoons being stuck and locked on this town? Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Man, what a book.
One of the
What a
wildest
book.
thing that I think that came out of this book is the idea that you can surf like wind spirals. That's
Oh, that was kind of cool.
right. Like, also, that's totally something would happen if you could manage to tame, quote unquote, tame, and create a new sport or a new method of transportation. Like, for context, like if they spoke or did something way too loud, it would cause spirals to occur. So people learned that they could force spirals to occur and then like surf them like a surfboard in the water. But now you're just land surfing on like this like wind devil moving through town. Wild.
It looked cool, but it was in the book. It's very dangerous and easy to die. You do that.
That's why control.
Small detail. But yeah, that was. I mean, just the like imagination to come up
Yes,
with the stuff that's in this book is just like
100%.
crazy, you know. Um, but yeah. All right, are we ready to go into our final thoughts and ratings?
I do believe we are. So, if you are new to the Nat 20 Book Club, you will know that we rate our books on a 1 through 20. Why 1 through 20? Well, in D&D, a natural 1 means that you have rolled an absolute failure. A natural 20 means it's a critical success. You can go no higher. And so, to honor our name of our channel, we rate our books 1 through 20. So, Dana, was this a critical success or a critical failure? Or somewhere in
This
between?
was this was a critical success. This was a nat 20. This book slaps, and I will not shut up about this book now.
Yes.
If anyone asks me for a spooky story for Halloween season,
Mm-hmm.
this is what I'm telling them to read.
Absolutely. Yes, if you are,
Yeah.
yeah, I also enjoyed the book. I'm not going to give it a nat 20 for myself. I will definitely give it a 15 though, for sure. Like
Ooh.
it's definitely like you succeed most checks because it does meet the bill.
Mm-hmm.
If it hits the horror spooky genre for sure. It is great artwork that you want to see from this medium in manga. Great storytelling where you had like the words and the dialogue mean stuff, and there's always something to kind of glean from it. Like it hit a bunch of things, the nail on the head many times.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's not my normal genre, as Dana likes to pick books that are outside, but for sure I would recommend it. I don't know if I'll reread it a ton, but it's definitely a book that I would reread again when the time is right.
One day, when we've recovered emotionally, we're ready to destroy ourselves again.
Right?
All right. Well, that was Uzumaki. I don't know that we have a book lined up for our next video, but I think maybe Matt, you should pick the next one because I keep making you reread word books.
It's okay. That's okay. We'll survive. Well, I'll you know it's been an experience. I've read some fun books I definitely would not have picked up otherwise. That is for sure. Um, yeah, you know what? We don't need to pick a book because last time we picked a book, we didn't do it, and it was 3 months. So you know what?
Yeah, it's
You'll
fine.
know when we pick a book when the next time we release a video on the Nat 20 Book Club.
Yeah. And until then, happy reading. We hope you have a
Happy
good
reading.
holiday season. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.